Hello, and welcome to Building Conversations, the STO Building Group podcast. I'm your host, Christie Mullen, Director of Business Development in Structuretone, New Jersey. Joining me today, we have two lovely ladies. We have Wendy Castro, Director of Design and Construction at Rockefeller Group, and Christine Bunner, Project Manager at R.C. Anderson. In this special Women's History Month episode, we're exploring how women in construction are shaping team dynamics, fostering inclusive cultures, mentoring future leaders, and driving innovation to create lasting impact across complex projects. So let's get started. I'm going to first pass over to you, Wendy. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be in the industry and where you are today.
Thank you, Christy.
Yeah.
First, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very excited to be here and spend the time with you. Wendy Castro, I've been with Rockefeller 14 years, but my start was in the construction side. I'll take it back a little bit further. Undergrad, I did civil engineering. Not really sure where I would go with that. I always tell kids, do internships because you start to learn what you do and don't like.
Sure.
So I quickly realized that design was probably not my path. I talk way too much for that. So I came up the construction route, got curious about what developers did, went back to grad school, and made the transition. I've been at Rockefeller Group about 14 years now, and it's incredibly exciting to see over the last 25 years how our industry continues to evolve and shift.
Sure. And I'm sure when you were in school, you were probably one of few women in your civil engineering at the time,
You
or
could
no?
count them on one hand.
Sure. Yes. Well, hopefully that's changing as well. Okay. And Christine, what about yourself? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got here today?
Sure. Well, I'll echo too. Thank you again for having me. This is a very intimidating honor. But I've been in the industry about 12 years. I also started with a civil engineering background. Didn't know what I wanted to do. I was focusing more on the environmental side. Thought maybe I'll design wastewater treatment plants for a living. Then also figured design's not for me. I'm more of a visual person. I like to see things. I like to see the start and the end and the story that goes behind what we do day to day. After I graduated college, I was working for a geotechnical engineering firm in a field-based position, and one of my project sites happened to be an R.C. Anderson project, and the superintendent was like, "Have you ever thought about construction management?" Like, you know what? Now I am, and that was actually 10 years ago, so I'll be with R.C. Anderson 10 years now this year.
And okay, so when I first met both of you ladies, I could tell immediately there was a friendship, but I know that came out of a working relationship. So can you tell us a little bit more about that working relationship, how you guys got to know each other, and maybe the project that you guys kind of first started on? Wendy, I'll let you take it away.
Absolutely. We awarded a project to R.C. Anderson in 2021. So I am not sure where the last 5 years have gone, Christine, but we have been very fortunate to get through a corn shell for a building, and we're actually back together. The gang is back. Mm-hmm. We're working on a fit out for that exact same project. On that aspect of the project, it was really exciting to see the amount of women that we had. And when we discussed, when we started, mm-hmm. we had, and we still have, women on the architect side, the legal side, the environmental side,
Yep.
Safety, yourself, me. So it's pretty exciting that we've had many conversations where it's been 100% women. And it just felt interesting to reflect on that.
And that is traveled into a recent project, from what I understand. Is that correct?
So like Wendy said, we started 5 years ago. And you also forgot to mention it was a major demolition project before we built the corn shell. So
true.
We've kind of seen this building from, sticks to wall. And now we're coming back, the band's back together, and we're fitting out this warehouse for a new tenant. And again, it's been very refreshing to have this like female-driven project team.
That's awesome.
And not to take away from our wonderful male colleagues.
Yeah, no, I know.
No.
They have been great leaders and mentors to myself as well. But that being said, given that you guys are a part of this project with such a woman-focused team, have you seen women uniquely influence the team dynamics or the collaborations on this project, how it's being delivered?
I think in general, like, I don't think I've ever gone into a room or a meeting thinking, well, as a woman, I'd rather my other attributes sort of speak to myself, however, the approach to creating relationships is a little bit different. I'm not going to go into a meeting and pretend to care about sports because it's just, honestly, it's not something I care for.
Spending every weekend golfing. Got it.
No, but, that kind of different effect, I think I try to find different levels of common grounds to connect with people, just sort of past maybe some of that superficial, like, small talk.
Sure. And Wendy, I assume you feel similarly?
I do. I think a lot of it is very organic. When we reflect on this, we realized we moved beyond the business relationship, right? So having worked for 5 years, we're back together. Christine knows all too well about my kid and my hockey stories. I want Christine to adopt me and take her on her vacations around the world. So we have a foundation throughout the entire team where we're human. And I think that's a huge part of how we build our relationships, which in turn give us trust to work with one another.
Yeah, I think I always say, like, there is no bond like that, especially when it comes to, like, working moms. And we just immediately have a base level understanding of where each other's coming from and what we're dealing with, both on the project site, but also back at home too, right? So that automatically creates some sort of initial connection across the board.
I'll just add that I think we see that even more as we grow in our careers, right? Mm-hmm. So if this reaches anyone that's 1, 2, 3 years out of school and you find yourself to be the only woman in a meeting, it's also okay if you have a moment of pause, because I think we've all had it. Mm-hmm. So with growth in our career, what we're intending to say is lean into that, because you grow from there.
Yeah, it's like, don't be afraid to kind of be your authentic self. Like, let your own personality shine through. Don't try to fit into a box that somebody has told you to fit into, per se.
Right. Yeah, perfect. We always have a different perspective. Mm-hmm. I think coming in as that female voice at times. With that being said, you guys have just spoke about a woman-led team. However, we are often in a situation, right, where we're dealing with a lot of men and personalities. So have you guys found any sort of mechanisms that work best for you to ensure that every voice is heard, no matter what the dynamics are in the team?
I mean, for me, something that I've been actively working on lately is kind of getting more comfortable with having those uncomfortable conversations, delivering bad news in a way that, presents a solution to the problem, but, also isn't like a doom and gloom, everything's going wrong. It's not easy. I like to be the one who has the answers to all the problems. I know I don't, but I would rather say, oh, I've fixed your problem, than say, here's your problem and here's how I'm going to fix it, which is something, again, like I'm working on. It's not easy, but sometimes you just have to pick up the phone and say, okay, this is the situation. Right. This is what we're going to do.
Hear me out.
Yeah.
Here we go.
And stay curious. I think what we've done really well is had moments and a lot of conversations to try to pause and self-reflect, mm-hmm. right? For my part, I try to slow down a bit and listen to everyone around the table. And the industry we're in, that's sometimes a challenge because we're under a schedule, we're under a budget, it's speed to market. But to build inclusive culture means engaging everyone on our team.
For sure. And I've always felt like I appreciate when I'm in a meeting, and if, I haven't had the opportunity to speak, but, you take that last beat and say, do you have anything to add? Because I think that always opens the door, right, for other people to go ahead and add their piece. So if we're looking back on a challenging project, we'll say, do you have any lessons that you've learned with leading the team? I guess, Wendy, often for you, where you are in your career, shaping the culture, influence the outcomes that you would like to share with other females in the industry?
That's a great question. And I will start by saying I actually received feedback that helped me in one of the most challenging parts or a very challenging moment in my career, which had to do with sinkholes. So if you know me, you know the project. And it was a roller coaster because I simply didn't have that experience. I took a lot of comfort in knowing that I had the right folks on my team who guided me and we problem solved. But it's the willingness of having the uncomfortable conversations when you know you're not the subject matter expert.
Sure.
And really being able to deliver those messages upstream in a concise way where I was giving feedback back to what you were saying, Christine. We want to give an update, semicolon, solution. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of us are kind of wired that way. Mm-hmm. And the feedback I was given was rip the Band-Aid off, right? Because that was generally a scenario where weather's out of our control, so many things were out of our control that those interim updates needed to be succinct, right? And for me, that was definitely a lesson learned of getting comfortable with not having all the answers.
Do you feel like men and women have had a difference in delivering some of that information from your past? Have you had to kind of grow into holding firm?
I mean, I find myself saying, oh, sorry to bother you. Oh, sorry to give you the update that it's still snowing and, you know, there's nothing I can do about it.
I think you want to avoid, generally speaking, as a woman, being labeled as emotional, right? And reactive, because those are two things I think that are easy ploys to throw on women. Oh, she's dealing with a lot at home or whatever it may be, and so she's just having a bad day. Or
that's interesting because the word emotional really does not creep up for me. I look at it as more as those filler words can take away from our message, right?
For sure.
And a lot of it is just how we're raised or brought up, but we can lean into changes.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't want to ever be thinking, oh, well, she's so emotional, she's having a bad day. And, you know, I'm allowed to have a bad day. Maybe I present it a little bit differently than somebody else. But I think it's tough sometimes to like quash what I'm feeling because there's a point of me or part of me too that takes things personally. I care deeply about my work, my job, and you know sometimes things just get to you a little bit, and it's hard to kind of turn that around to you know remember the why of what we're doing and you know how we're getting things done.
And not everyone may agree, but I do think sometimes the double standard will be there. Right? Where if I am frustrated and my tone takes a certain shift, it's not perceived the same way when a man's tone shifts.
100%.
Sure.
But to your point, Christine, that's an opportunity for me to then bring it back in because that is my authentic self. I do show up and sometimes my frustration will come across, but I know enough now that I can also lean into the team and bring it back together.
So basically we need to be direct and hold firm on what we're saying and not use those terminologies that we might find that are placating other people just for the benefit of themselves.
And it comes with experience, right? Because I think at every step we have always had, I always say everyone has a first day.
Sure.
So on your first day, you don't know. My first day, I did not know what RFIs and submittals were.
Right.
I did not know, right? So just kind of, it's okay to be vulnerable and allow ourselves to have those spaces of just growth because we don't know.
So then if we're moving on to kind of maybe a notable project, right? We've kind of talked about being direct and coming up with a solution. But if you had to think of a certain time where you had a specific approach to problem solving or maybe an innovation played a role in making a difference with an outcome of a project?
So, I mean, going back to the project that we worked on together, this project had everything. We had major demolition, there were environmental concerns, but we still had a schedule to maintain. So I think we were able to kind of brainstorm and we came up with a solution to sort of build the building in two halves and move towards the middle instead of, you know, your typical like clockwise pattern. And I think that, you know, at the end of the day, we were able to still get the job done under schedule or within our schedule.
Absolutely.
And under budget. So.
And kudos to Christine and the team because that is generally the definition of getting creative. You know, we've all seen the image where a bridge is being built from two ends and oops, it doesn't connect.
Right.
Obviously, that was not the case here.
Perfect.
But how often do we see that type of approach? So that was incredibly creative.
Yeah, and I know sometimes on these, more high-profile projects, more notable projects, you do have some sticky people maybe in the way too at times. Do you have any advice on dealing with folks or your problem-solving skill set to kind of deal with those personalities along the way?
That is such a good question, because I think it's not project specific. I think it's inevitable. We hit this all the time, right? Because we're human. It's a work in progress for me. And I'm trying to take pause and simply approach the individual from a place of curiosity. Help me understand what you need. Help me understand how you see this. Help me understand the perceived risk. So really just kind of approaching it from a curiosity so that the person can inform me and I understand a bit better on how to approach them.
I like that. So kind of figuring out what motivates people too, and how you can kind of best, develop this relationship from whomever to work together and, be part of the team sort of thing. And, I think for me too, sometimes I'll sort of step back and I'll say, okay, well, I don't think I have the answer I need right now. Maybe let's, like kind of you said, take a beat. Let's regroup a little bit later and let's figure this out then, because I don't think right now is the time to come to the decision and
not everything's an urgent matter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Using that emotional IQ, I think we come equipped with, right? And I think some of the advice that I've always received, regardless of women or male, is, you can only control your own actions at the end of the day.
One aspect of problem solving that we really haven't touched on too much is our mindset. And I've talked Christine's ear off over the years and sent her Instagram reels because this is something that really has honed in for me. I'm very thankful that at Rockefeller Group, we were giving the opportunity to be mentored. And this was a key aspect that they touched upon is our mindsets, right? Like you were speaking earlier about not putting ourselves into a box, whoever creates that box. We do that on our own. So it's really rewiring our brain to allow us to, it's creating a shift where you can say the words, I get to, not I have to, not I need to, or I should or could. I get to, right? Like I am truly blessed that Sunday nights, I don't go to sleep dreading going to work. And unfortunately, some people do. But I think our mindset and how we approach life, but we can certainly apply it to our business and our careers, can be very impactful.
And I think sometimes those are like the best days too, when you go into something, maybe this is going to go a little sideways, and then, you kind of conquer the world and you're like, yes. Like, this is the best. I have the best job ever. I am the best at my job. Maybe not, but it's those kind of like glimmers that are like, this is what it's all about.
Right.
And taking that into kind of the after action. I know we spoke about that a little bit while we were preparing for today, right? Is how do we kind of bring that mindset, okay, and if it didn't go the way that we wanted it to go, what is the after action review that we want to look at to kind of mend that moving forward? And how do we want to differ in our next approach?
Don't be afraid to fail, right? We did spend some time on this and this goes across the board. Doesn't matter if you're early in your career or late in your career. Right. As humans, we're so afraid of failure. That's another muscle, I'll say, that we've been challenged to try to strengthen.
Right.
Is have a goal. It's okay if it doesn't feel achievable. Like, it really is okay. It's okay if you fail, because if you don't try, you're simply not going to learn or chip at anything new.
Right. And, whether that be because you're a woman or not, I think sometimes we do strive for perfectionism across the board. I know we talked
guilty
about
at times.
100%.
I'm a Virgo, so I know that can play into that.
I think early in my career, I did have a boss who leaned and said, "Listen, I want you to understand that when you're running projects, a decision is better than no decision. And you don't need to have all the answers. And that stuck with me.
Right. And I know we've talked a lot about different advice points along the way, right? I think we've all given little nuggets. But if you were to give any specific advice to a female or woman entering the construction industry about building influence or fostering that collaboration or shaping the team culture for a long-term impact, what would that advice look like?
Try to stay true to your authentic self. Don't put yourself in that box. Ask questions, know when to ask them, and then to kind of build your team, build your support system. STO talks about having a best friend at work, and I think that best friend could be a lot of different people, a lot of different times. I think sometimes with certain issues that have come up on particularly the project that we've worked on together, like you and I have been that best friend, just like a little bit of room to vent.
Besties forever.
Yes, always. And it's important though to find your people, because at the end of the day, like the people, the relationships, that's what is going to build us forward.
Right.
I would say know your areas of growth. Right. This goes back to what you were saying about pausing and reflecting. Because that's going to shift throughout your career. I just your area of growth, and then lean into it. Whether it's coming here and being a little bit nervous to be on a podcast with cameras staring at us because we don't do this.
No.
Or sitting on a panel, or, doing some of the BD work that doesn't come natural to some of us. Lean into the areas of growth intentionally. And I would challenge all the listeners to, especially if you're younger in your career, give thought and choose one actionable item starting today. And it doesn't have to be life-shifting, right? Just one actionable item that you think you can implement that will help your growth, whether it's seek a mentee or be a mentor or sign up for that one event next month, whatever it is, right? Just kind of, no one's going to push you through the door. You have to walk through the door on your own.
It reminds me of a story. My daughter, this is a true story. My husband was putting on his socks in the morning, and he had construction socks. They have like little tools on them, right? And he's putting them on. And my daughter, she was probably like 3 or 4 at the time. She's like, "Oh, I want to try those on." And he gives her the sock, and she's like, "It's too big for me." And he said, "Yeah, well, we'll have to get you some smaller pair." And she said, "No, Daddy, I just need bigger feet." Oh. And to me, I looked at that and I was like something doesn't fit you. You have growth to come. Like, how do you get bigger feet? How do you become that bigger version of yourself to make that sock fit you at the end of the day? It doesn't have to be a sock, but
no, I get it.
I thought that was really funny. I was like, this is too perfect.
I love that.
I love the story. And, you're just hitting on something that we can always learn. We're not necessarily learning always from upper management. We learn from across, up, down, and across.
Right. For sure.
Yeah. I think seek those opportunities to learn too, through self-study, mentorship programs outside of work, or just even having a life outside of work. I think that's sometimes we forget, there's more to life than work. Sorry.
Not sorry. There should be a lot of life outside of work.
I'll use my PTO days forever.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
No, and I think part of being a woman in this industry, and like I said, I see it between the two of you, and for me, those people that I've been lucky to say, the people that I have met in the industry have been able to travel with me outside of work, and I've formed those real friendships where we hang out.
That's wonderful.
With nothing to do with work. We don't talk about work. We're just there for the fun of it. And I think that is maybe something unique for women at times, that we're able to form those long-lasting bonds.
I will say I'm starting to see more, I'll say, female-oriented networking events.
Sure.
So kudos to all the creative folks out there that are doing, whether it's a manicure networking event or champagne and something or other. I don't remember the catchy phrase, right? To your point, golf is cool. We're not taking away the golf from anyone. 9 holes would be perfect for me. Just saying. but being creative and having other opportunities, I think that's fantastic. Let's spend a few minutes just chatting about the obvious for us as women, not so obvious for all of our colleagues, right? As women, our lives will go through transitional periods, whether it's you're caring for an elder parent, you're having children, you take time off, fill in the blank, right? We are facing at times different life moments that impact our careers. So how do we approach that?
Right.
You're a mom, 3 beautiful babies.
Yes. And like I would go back to kind of really, it has forged the bonds that I have created amongst my colleagues, which is, certainly an impactful part of it. But I've also, like I said earlier, found folks who understand that part of who I am, and having their support and allowing me to be the best mom that I can be, while also trying to be the best employee and STO building group advocate that I can be. I mean, that's been probably the only way that I have been able to do both. And, when you first start, at least for me, when I first started off my career and I didn't have the 3 little ones at home, work was life. Like, really, right. I mean, my weekends, my week revolved around it, and I have had to find that balance. And I don't think I'm doing it perfectly, if I'm honest.
It sounds like you're an amazing and very normal mom.
Well, yeah. Thank you. But, I have to do things at a different time of day sometimes. Like last night, my husband came home because my kids had a snow day yesterday. So I was home. My husband came home. I took my laptop. I left and went and sat at a Starbucks and spent the evening doing work from that perspective. So having that flexibility to do that has also enabled me to thrive.
But on the working from home mom aspect, I did want to say that COVID, we don't talk about it anymore, right? It almost feels like it was some weird movie that we saw years ago. Mm-hmm. But COVID, to me, it really shifted so much in corporate America, especially in what a lot of working moms have been saying probably for decades, that give us a little bit of flexibility, and we will continue to be the rock stars we are, right? Because it's a lot to juggle. And I'm very thankful that the team that I work with, and in generally at Rockefeller, I feel nothing but support. And I see colleagues that are out on maternity leave, that they take paternity leave. And there really is a communal setting of the team's not going to fall apart, right? Like, we will have each other's back without sounding too cheesy. Mm-hmm. But their success is our success. And I think we all have a healthy view of understanding that it's not just, 9 to 5. We see our colleagues as humans who have lives outside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't really speak to, the working mom experience. I only have a cat. Shout out to my baby Scarlett. But I do kind of agree with you though, Wendy, that COVID, when that hit, that and Christy, to your point too, like, there is a life outside of work. I kind of touched on before, but that sort of reminded me, like, oh, my life isn't all about work. That's not defines me of who I am. If I meet somebody new, I don't lead with, oh, this is my job. I lead with, well, I have a cat, and I love to travel. Mm-hmm. And also, by the way, I work as a project manager for a construction company. Like, that's the third fact. There's more to life outside of that. And I think it's just important for people, especially women, to know that, it's not all about the 9 to 5. The 5 to 9 is also really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I find it funny because, as a female in a male-dominated industry, you see men wanting to reach out and have those emotional moments, and they come to you more so than their male colleagues. I had an instance like a week ago where a gentleman in my office, his daughter got married, and he wanted to show pictures, and he's newer to our office. He's very sweet, and he came up to me and he's like, "Oh, well, women are usually receptive to this kind of thing. Like, let me." And it was one of those moments where he wanted a human touch point, and I think you as a female just kind of have that welcoming open door naturally for people to come to you. So I think that dynamic in the workplace, even like the levity and like funniness that sometimes I feel like, at least in my office, the women bring, like that's something that goes unspoken, but it's so important to the dynamics of the workplace. Yes,
absolutely. It's part of our culture, and it goes back to we should be able to show up to work and have fun.
Right.
Right? Like we're problem solving, we're doing real work, but we can have fun while we're doing it.
Right. And I know we talked a little bit when we were preparing, and I don't know if either of you had an opportunity, but to speak to some of the men and ask them if they had any viewpoints of how the industry has shifted from kind of including females along the way.
That is so good. I actually did speak to one of my colleagues, Josh. Shout out to Josh. Not quite that question, but I think I asked him, I said, Josh, as a man, how do you go about building relationships? And he looked at me like I was crazy because he's like, what are you up to? And we had some good dialogue. My takeaway from that was he doesn't do anything different than I do, right? So it goes back to the common theme we've had all day, which is it's not as a woman, blah, blah, blah. It's most of the things that we're discussing are as a human, how do we approach the workplace? The woman factor, and happy Women's History Month, is how do we support each other in our growth and increasing the visibility and the opportunities for more women in our industry.
Right.
I think it's important too to kind of promote that dialogue and, you know, the uncomfortable conversations with that shared, I don't know, call it like bonded moments of girlhood. Like, oh,
we had a moment.
We did have
remember that?
Yes. So we were on a call not too long ago, and one of Wendy's, you know, we'll call it catchphrases, you like to say amongst us girls. And you know, we were on a call and you said, oh, amongst us girls, and we all kind of went,
it was all girls.
Yeah.
It was all women. That was, and then we laughed.
Yeah.
It
was wonderful.
That's girlhood.
It's funny because how often you hear like, all right, guys and girls, you know, and you had the opportunity to say, all right, girls. There you go. Okay, I wanted to thank both Wendy and Christine for being here with me today. And thank you all for listening to the Building Conversations podcast.